Hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue or actually begin our discussion on facilities management. You're tuned into Business World. I introduce you to our guest on the show today, Mr. Stan Mitchell, Chairman and President of one of the longest established facilities management businesses in the world. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Let's begin perhaps with defining facilities management. I mean, from the research that we've done, facilities management is defined by different entities in different ways. One of them have suggested that it is the management and operation of buildings that are more complex, including facilities and services provided that include air conditioning, dry cleaning, decoration, power, lighting, security, and so forth. How would you define facilities management?
In much more strategic and broader terms, I would think. Facilities management is really all about how you support the core business activity in a holistic way. So it encompasses the building, it encompasses the services, but perhaps more importantly, it's also about the people and the function that they are trying to fulfill within a building or within a complex. So it's a much broader discipline than simply a range of services to keep a building functioning.
Yes, but don't you think that this broadening of the definition makes the field more ambiguous by pinpointing what exactly people in FM do?
You're absolutely right. It's both a strength and a weakness in terms of the discipline that it is. It's a weakness in that it doesn't fit neatly into a box. So if you talk to people about architecture, they know they go to an architect and they know that is exactly what they get. They get design of buildings. If you talk to people about engineering, they know they can get people to engineer and design or repair or maintain mechanical services. If you talk to people about facilities management, it's a much more holistic business discipline. The core business of facilities management is the non-core business of the client organization. So in this building, the core business is making TV programs. Everything else that allows you to do that would come under the auspices of facilities management.
Okay. And is this definition held in any form in an international organization that is related to facilities management that perhaps can maintain a certain standard on a universal level?
Yes, there is now. It's a relatively young discipline, profession.
Yes.
It's only in Europe about 25 years old.
Okay. And I mean, perhaps you can also maybe delve into the history of FM. I mean, it began 25 years ago?
It began 25, 30 years ago. And really all facilities management is, if you take all those non-core activities that allow an organization to function, typically you would have somebody in charge of security, you'd have somebody in charge of maintenance, you would have somebody in charge of the leasing of the buildings, etc. Facilities management is all about bringing all of that together under strategic management. And the strategic management role is to make sure that whatever you are doing in all of these different activities supports the needs of the core organization, the core business.
And as a result of this growth of this new field, there was an organization that came about to manage this on an international level in terms of the standards and the definitions.
There are a number of organizations. There are organizations which have emerged nationally in different countries in the world. There recently is an organization which has emerged as the Global Facilities Management Association, and it is trying to ensure the knowledge of the discipline is shared across the world in different countries. And there is now quite recently European standards that have been established, which is related to ISO standards. And the first standards in facilities management were created in 2006. And there's currently another 4 standards in progress and about to be published.
Okay. Well, I mean, for prospective clients, what are the advantages for me to consult a facilities management company? What is there for me to gain out of it? Apart from perhaps cutting down on staff and increasing my profit?
Well, both of those things may or may not happen. There's a lot of advantages in true facilities management. And if I can take a step back to take a step forward, if you consider why organizations outsource to specialists, to accountants, to lawyers, to architects, it's because they have qualifications, they have competencies, and they are specialists. Their core business is doing what they do, so they should be more efficient and more effective at doing it than a general business manager in any particular type of organisation. What facilities management encompasses is the second highest overhead to any organisation. The overhead of the business of this building, a TV studio, of a government building, of a hospital, whatever it is, the second highest overhead, typically after salaries, is those costs for those support services. So it kind of makes sense that then you should professionally manage all of those.
Okay.
And if you do, you can often, almost always, make tangible impact, not just on the costs, but you can save significant costs, but also on the standards of the quality of the services that are delivered, the customer satisfaction that results, the workplace, the environment that people work in. And all of these things are maybe not quite so tangible, but just as important. Because organizations function based on how people perform. If you give them a better environment, they typically will perform better.
I mean, as with anything, or most cases usually, there are advantages and there are also disadvantages. Is there a disadvantage, in your point of view, with facilities management that you could think of? As biased as you may be, of course, as an expert and proponent of facilities management, but in any case, would you say that there's a weakness or an area facilities management that potential clients need to be aware of?
There is, probably I answer that from a slightly different perspective. There is a weakness in that because it's not such a tangible definition, people don't understand it, and it's not easy to understand. So there's a weakness in that to try and explain to people why they should even think about it, never mind try and realise it and practice it. That's the biggest challenge that we tend to face in the industry. When you look at the benefits that it can bring, however, so the people that are interested enough to go and find out and understand a bit about it, fundamentally it will impact your overhead, and in these days of economic recession, actually it tends to be very good for facilities management.
Absolutely.
Because in economic recession, commercial organisations either have to increase sales, which is difficult if it's an economic recession, or they can go and do something about their overhead. So if you can reduce your overhead, that saving goes straight onto your bottom line. So getting people to understand that is probably the biggest challenge that we have.
But from a different perspective, perhaps also when applying or when exploring new markets in the developing world. Developing world has unemployment rates that are quite high. You know, they range from 10 all the way to 30%, depending on the country that is being talked about. Do you think that introducing facilities management to these countries increases the risk of increasing these unemployment rates by making companies more efficient, that they would cut down on redundancies in their staff? As much as this from an organizational point of view is beneficial and would increase profit and reduce expenses and so forth, from a more social perspective, it really is a disadvantage.
It's never been our experience, and let me try and explain why. We've been involved in over 18 years in this business of ours. We've been involved in going in and changing many organisations. Nobody has ever lost their job as a result of it. What we have been able to do is we have been able to realign people in their employment and the role that they fulfil within their organisation, typically with advantages to the organisation itself, but also, and maybe more importantly, arguably, advantages to the individual. If you can give them a more fulfilling role to play in an organisation where they realise a real synergy and tangible contribution that they're making to that organisation, they're much more motivated, they're much happier in their job.
Well, we'll take a quick break, at least from our discussion, but of course for our audiences, the show continues with a brief look at investment in Egypt. And remember that if you have any questions, do give us a call. We're talking about facilities management, 257-94828, or drop us an email, bw@yusufgamediddin.com. Sally, let's have an update on what the media is saying on investment in Egypt.